You stick to the scheduled audit tomorrow. Everything official, everything in public. You'll be fine. I need for you to be fine.
You know, you sold this as an office job.
You're not just an analyst anymore. You're operational now.
How does Tom Clancy compare to Shakespeare or Stan Lee?
Storytellers who go for archetypes and myths, and who, in the case of Tom Clancy, puts Jack Ryan alone and isolated, gifted, but isolated often in dangerous situations, makes him a representative of us, a kind of everyman with whom we can go on the journey viscerally. You know, 13, 14 novels and a sort of worldwide reputation and a name that we see everywhere means that he, like Mr. Lee and Mr. Shakespeare, there's something they're doing right. They know something about what is primal in people's interest in a story. And so it has some sort of classic DNA in it, in the fabric of its being. And I was very thrilled to be involved in trying to reimagine a modern version of it.
He's an action hero, but he's also a guy learning to be an action hero.
Yeah, that's a great way of describing him. I think, you know, he's a man that in any other world would have been very comfortable in a library or teaching, as we see him do in Harrison's films, and gardening, cooking, making breakfast, living a very normal middle-class life. He just so happens to be thrown on the front lines. And his major asset is his mind, is his intelligence. And that can only go so far until you have, in this case, run and protect the woman of your dreams. So you have to become physical. But I like the MacGyver aspect of a guy that really has to figure out how to be a badass.
You're also working with a number of actors, and yourself included, who would be very comfortable in a stage production, and yet this feels like a movie that or a story you really can't tell on stage. It's very fast-paced.
You're right about that, actually. It's interesting. There's something about the actual pacing of it which can only be cinematic. It just has to be. And it's to do with the rhythm of the story, the facts of the story, the circumstances, the compression of time, the gamble of the roll of the dice that Sharavin's character makes against money markets, and the moment at which Jack finally gets the information almost too late in the day to try and intervene in this story. All of it is already adrenalized. You have to keep up with it. You have to keep up with Jack, the action, and Jack's train of thought. So it's a nerve jangler. I still get quite nervous when I watch it, and rather anxious on Jack's behalf, and very careful to try and keep up with things. That kind of story I like.
I think the reason why Kim works so well with these bigger films is that having tackled real intense drama, the best there is, Shakespeare, he brings that story-centric, character-centric perspective to bear on a film that's by nature very, very big and explosive and action-packed. And with that comes a real grounding in character and a real grounding in plot and relationships, and that was necessary for a film like ours.
What initially drew you to the movie? The role as a director, or the role of Shervin?
Directing the picture via an excellent script by David Koepp, and just feeling, as I did 20 years ago, I came to Hollywood, and in my dressing room at the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles, I was in touring productions of King Lear and Midsummer Night's Dream. That afternoon, I'm waiting to go on, and I'm reading a script called Dead Again. I read the first 2-3 pages, and I know I'm going to make the movie. And in a dressing room for a French farce at the Lyric Theatre in Belfast, I'm turning the pages of Jack Ryan and knowing that I would like to do it. It grabs you and it never lets you go.
It also feels like you've gone back through and loaded it with reference to numbers, which is a big part of the plot.
Yeah. One of the elements with this, you get a great writer like David Koepp, Adam Kozad. You get smart people like Chris Pine and Kevin Costner and Keira Knightley, and you start to get obsessed with little areas of detail. You can also bring in, with a character like Victor Sharaven, a love of literature. So suddenly, a key part of how the plot is extended is through Keira Knightley's ability to understand that Russian literature might be something that Sharaven flatters himself he knows, and so she brings up the character of Pachurin, a famous Russian character from a novel by Lermontov called A Hero of Our Time, which I was thrilled thrilled to be able to stick in the center of a picture like this because it's pertinent to character, and yet it's unusual, and it makes it feel like the film is particular and in itself sort of full of little details that somehow the audience intuit and feel is a little more or differently authentic. So numbers, words, the Grushnitsky Hotel where they stay is a character from a poem by Pushkin. Every number has a story behind it. Every name has a story behind it.